Welcome to the Shadow Veil, the channel where true horror stories come to life. In this episode, I'm going to tell you something that might change the way you see the world around you. Not all vampires are seductive. Not all of them whisper in dark corners or lurk behind beauty and charm. Some of them are animals. They don't stalk, they tear. They don't choose victims, they rip them open. There are reports, real ones, of bodies found, drained dry hearts, missing skin, shredded as if by teeth, too jagged to belong to any human mouth. No footprints, no explanation. Just a cold, hollow mess where someone used to be. But not all vampires stay that way. Some change. They learn to hold back, to fight the thirst. Some of them even walk beside us, live among us, hide in plain sight. Not because they have to, but because they choose to. This video isn't just about blood. It's about control. About the monsters that gave in and the ones that didn't. 7 stories, 7 different faces of the same curse. And the last one. The last one's not about a killer. It's about a friend. One who could have fed, should have fed, but didn't. Before we jump into this thrilling story, make sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps me stay motivated to create even better content. Story 1, The Thing in the Rafters. I was hired in late October to do a routine inspection on a long-abandoned weather station, deep in the Cascade Range. It was supposed to be a quick 3-day survey, just to verify that the seismic equipment stored there hadn't been looted. The last report from this site was back in 1994. Since then, snowstorms and landslides had swallowed most of the access trail. I had to hike 6 miles with a generator strapped to my back, following a path that barely existed on the New Forest maps. The station sat in a natural bowl of stone and dead trees, surrounded on all sides by dense pine and snowdrifts. The wind didn't move there. It settled. I set up inside, quickly unlocked the corroded door with a backup key, and lit the lantern. The lower level was lined with empty shelves and mold-black file cabinets. Upstairs, the control room had a cracked desk, a shattered monitor, and an old tape-based recording unit. That's what they sent me for. It still had a few reels left. I plugged in the generator and rewired the power feed. As soon as it hummed to life, the recorder clicked. Without me pressing anything, it started to spin. The reels moved on their own. I leaned in, headphones on, not expecting much. Static, maybe. Dust. But what came through made me freeze. It was my voice. Only I hadn't said those words. I hadn't even spoken since entering the room. The voice on the tape was low, trembling. It said, "Don't look outside. If you see it, it learns your face." Then the tape hissed, sputtered, and snapped. I rewound it 3 times. Same words, same tone, same terror. I chalked it up to audio contamination, maybe a prank left by the last surveyor. But my chest felt cold. Not from the temperature, but from something deeper. Like the bones inside me were listening. That night, I slept on the floor upstairs with my flashlight under the chin and my hand on the lantern. I didn't sleep much. At some point, after 3 a.m., I heard tapping. Not on the door, not on the floorboards on the roof. 3 light taps. Then silence. A pause. Then again. Tap, tap, tap. Rhythmic. Purposeful. I climbed up toward the attic hatch to check, thinking maybe an animal had gotten stuck. I pulled the chain. The hatch opened an inch. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow, raspy, wet, like something with lungs too large and too far inside. In the morning, I found something worse. All around the building in the snow were marks. Not footprints, not claws, just indentations where the snow had melted into perfect ovals, 3 in a row, repeating in a slow curve around the entire station. The sun barely touched the ravine floor. I stepped outside to take photos. That's when I noticed the silence was different. The forest didn't just lack sound, it lacked echo. My footsteps had no bounce. My voice didn't return. It was like the air was absorbing sound faster than I could make it. I tried not to panic. I told myself it was just the altitude. I checked the attic again, just before dusk. I had to know. This time I opened the hatch fully and aimed my light. There was nothing, just dust and rotted insulation. But as I turned to close it, the flashlight flickered, and for a second I saw something move, a flap of something soft and leathery folding behind a beam. I stared. Nothing. But then I saw it. 2 slits in the wall high up, where light barely touched, opened. Not like eyes. More like wounds. They blinked. Then something unfolded from the ceiling. It was hanging upside down like a bat, but too large, too human. Its limbs were jointed like a person's, but bent the wrong way. Its skin was grey and hairless, like weathered leather stretched too thin. Its face was not a face, just a smooth plane, with 2 breathing holes and a mouth that ran too far too wide. When it opened, I saw teeth like quills, not rows, dozens of needle-like points spiraling inward. And when it breathed, the sound didn't come from its throat. It came from its wings, membranous, semi-transparent, lined with something like veins and hair. They vibrated with every exhale, like a massive insect's hum, made of breath and hate. I slammed the hatch shut, nailed it from the outside. Then I heard it land on the floor above. It didn't chase, it didn't scratch, it just walked. Slowly, back and forth, as if memorizing the room. I stayed up the rest of the night, clutching a crowbar eyes on the stairs. At dawn, I made the call, packed my gear and started hiking out. No signal. I left the generator running, the lantern burning, and hiked until my legs were numb. But even 2 miles out, I could still hear it. Not footsteps, not screams, just tapping. 3 light taps against tree trunks, against rocks, sometimes against nothing at all. I didn't look back. 2 weeks later, back at base, I reviewed the tape again. This time, the voice said something different. My voice, recorded. It said, "You looked. It knows now. You brought it back." And in the silence that followed, I swear I heard wings. That night I didn't sleep. I kept the lights on, every single one. I taped blackout curtains across the windows and stuffed towels under the door. But just after 2:00 a.m., the power flickered. Once, twice, then everything went still. No hum from the heater, no glow from the monitor, only silence and something else. From the roof of my apartment, I heard it again. Tap, 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 soft, deliberate, like a finger testing for weak spots. I didn't go to the window. I didn't move. I just listened. And in that stillness, I felt something settle above me. Not weight, not shadow, but pressure. As if the air itself bent under the presence of something that should not exist in this world. I slammed the hatch shut, hard, pounding so hard it drowned out everything else. But before I could reach for the nails, something pushed back, soft, wet, and impossibly strong. A hand slid through the crack, long fingers tipped with translucent claws, knuckles bent backward, veins pulsing black under grey skin. It didn't grab, it didn't slash, it simply touched me. One fingertip brushed my cheek, cold, like metal left in snow, but somehow wet like the tongue of a corpse. My jaw locked, my vision doubled, my pulse stuttered. I felt it, not pain, but a pulling, a suction, not from outside, but from within, like my blood was trying to leave me. My skin prickled, my lungs refused to expand. And in that exact moment, I understood. It didn't feed on blood the way legend said. It didn't rip or bite or drain. It marked, it memorized. It made a mold out of me. My shape, my scent, my voice, my thoughts. I wasn't prey, I was a blueprint. I don't remember closing the hatch. I don't remember running. What I remember is waking up 2 miles down the trail with my backpack, torn, my boots missing, and dried blood crusted beneath my nose and ears. My GPS was gone. My watch was cracked. My map had been shredded, except for one piece tucked into my shirt pocket. A single corner, with one red dot, exactly where the weather station stood. When I finally got back to the ranger outpost, no one believed me. The equipment logs said the recording device hadn't worked in 30 years. They showed me pictures of the station from a flyover last year. It had no roof, no attic, no second floor. They asked if I'd been drinking. They checked for frostbite. They sent me home. But I knew. At night, I started to change. Not visibly, but in rhythm. At 3:12 a.m., I would wake up. Not from a nightmare, but to silence. A silence too complete. And every time I'd feel something above me. Not footsteps, not weight. Just presence. And then came the tapping. Not on my window. Not on my roof. Inside my walls. Tap, tap, tap. Soft. Patient. Identical to the sound on that first night. As if it hadn't followed me. As if it had been here all along, just waiting for me to match its frequency. I checked my shadow in different lighting. Sometimes it lagged. Sometimes it didn't point the right way. Sometimes it seemed to breathe. I've moved apartments 3 times. I sleep in shifts. I cover my mirrors. I keep a crowbar beside every bed. But none of it helps, because I saw it. And now it has me. 2 nights ago, I recorded myself sleeping. At 3:12 a.m., I sat up, eyes open, breathing still, and I spoke. Not in English, not in anything human, but in a voice that matched the tape from the weather station. A voice that wasn't mine, but now lives in my throat. I don't think it wants to kill me. I think it's waiting for the rest of me to arrive, for whatever blueprint it made to finish printing. And when it does, I don't think I'll be the only one wearing this skin. So if you ever hear tapping 3 slow beats, always after midnight, don't look up. Because if you see it, it learns your face. Before I continue with story 2, go ahead and like this video. It lets me know you're still out there. And if you're brave enough to hit that subscribe button, it tells me one thing. You've got the guts to stick around for what's coming next. Because the stories are only going to get darker from here. All right, let's dive into next story. Story 2, the one who sleeps in stone. I didn't believe in cave curses. Not when I started documenting remote geological formations for my YouTube channel, and definitely not when my girlfriend Liv suggested we check out the Dome Caves just outside Winslow, Arizona. Most of them had collapsed in the late 70s. A few had been sealed off after an amateur caver vanished in 1983, but the Forest Service cleared that up as unstable ground and poor preparation. We weren't amateurs. We had ropes, cameras, backup lights, and weeks of solo spelunking experience between us. I tried carrying her, but she shook me off with strength I didn't know she had. Her skin was warm, feverish, and her eyes had that glaze people get just before fainting. But she kept walking. She didn't speak again. She just moved like she was being pulled by a thread I couldn't see. Every few feet she'd stop and tilt her head, like listening for a sound buried beneath the earth. When we finally climbed out, the light nearly blinded us. It wasn't even full sunlight, just overcast morning, but it hit my eyes like fire. Liv collapsed in the dirt outside the cave and screamed until her voice cracked. She couldn't stand sunlight. I wrapped her in a blanket and waited until dusk before we hiked out. On the drive home, she didn't speak, not even once, just stared out the window, humming some broken melody I didn't recognize. That night, she had scratches on her back, perfect parallel lines, as if something had rested its hand on her while she slept. The next night, they were deeper. On the third, I recorded her. At 2:08 a.m., she stood, barefoot, walked to the corner of the room, and pressed her forehead to the wall. She whispered, not in English, not even words, just clicks and syllables like stone shifting under pressure. Her eyes were open, dry, focused on nothing. I played the recording for a professor of linguistics. He couldn't place the sounds, but he said the cadence reminded him of echolocation, the kind used by cave-dwelling bats, or larger things. The scratches became bruises, then scars. Her spine looked like someone had drawn a map into her flesh. I tried to leave. I packed bags. I bought a flight. But that night, I woke up at 2:08 a.m. Not Liv. Me, standing in the hallway, forehead pressed to the drywall, whispering. My feet were covered in red dust. I haven't left since. We don't talk much. We don't open windows. We unplug everything at night. But the walls, they breathe. Some nights I hear things moving under the floorboards. Not rats, not plumbing, just weight, shifting in ways that don't make sense. And this morning, I found something in Liv's pillowcase. A tooth. Not hers. Not mine. Long. Hollow. Curved like a sickle. Like it grew in something that sleeps. Curled up in stone. Something that's still remembering us. The cave we found didn't have an official name. Locals called it Whistler's Mouth. A dry slit between two redstone ridges. No breeze, no wildlife. Just a stillness that clung to your skin. We marked the entrance with reflective tape descended and set up a camp zone just inside the mouth. The air turned 30 degrees colder as soon as we passed the threshold. It wasn't a deep cave by depth, but it wound in on itself. Spirals, tunnels that bent inward unnaturally. The deeper we went, the more the rock changed. From sandstone to something smoother, almost black, like obsidian but porous and faintly warm. That's when we found the basin, a wide natural bowl in the rock floor, rimmed with stone that looked like melted vertebrae. Liv joked it looked like a sacrificial altar. I laughed, but the moment echoed wrong. It bounced back from the walls, slightly off-tempo, like the cave didn't like laughter. We camped in the basin that night. Bad idea. I know that now. I woke sometime past 2 a.m., not from a noise, but from the absence of one. Our lantern had gone out. My watch had stopped. The cave was pitch black. I reached for Liv. She wasn't beside me. I called her name low and quick, trying not to startle anything that might be listening. No answer. I turned on my headlamp. Footprints, bare, leading away from our gear. No shoes, just her socks. But her gait was wrong, dragged, as if her legs weren't moving willingly. I followed. The trail led deeper into the rock, into a shaft we hadn't mapped. It sloped down at an impossible angle, nearly vertical at points. I don't remember how long I climbed. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. I just remember the air getting colder, then warmer, then still. At the end of the shaft, I found her, standing perfectly still facing a wall. No, what I thought was a wall. It was a surface, yes, but it pulsed like a lung, a mass of stone flesh, ridged and veined, pressed into the cave's end like a cocoon. Liv stood inches away, arms loose at her sides, eyes wide open. But she didn't see me. She whispered not to me, to it. He's not asleep anymore. I froze. A slit opened in the wall, not a door, Not an eye, a mouth, not with teeth, with hands that reached outward, pale with claws folded back into the knuckles. They didn't grab Liv. They touched her, like they were remembering her, tracing her bones without breaking skin. I screamed. That broke the trance. Liv collapsed. The hands retreated. The slit closed. We ran. We didn't look back. But something followed. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Just presence. A cold that filled the space behind our bodies. Our lights flickered every few seconds. And every time the cave behind us changed shape. Walls stretched. Shadows sharpened. The cave was reshaping itself, cutting off exits, herding us. We made it back to the basin then, out the mouth. But it left something with us. And that's the end of story 2. Still with me. If you are, drop 111 in the comments. So I know you're one of the brave ones. Still here, still listening to my twisted little tales. In the next video, I'll shout out some of your names as a thank you for your courage. Now, let's move on to the next story. Story 3. The Station in the Fog. I drive long-haul routes at night. Mostly refrigerated goods, small town to big city, nothing fancy. Been doing it for 8 years now. Seen all kinds of roadkill, weird lights, people in places they shouldn't be. But nothing like what I saw near mile marker 219 on Route 87 in Idaho. It was late October past 2 a.m. Fog rolling thick off the farmland. Visibility was maybe 30 feet ahead. I'd already passed the usual towns, Cougar Ridge, Elms Fork, the ones where gas stations close before midnight. My tank was low, so when I saw an old blue sign that said, "Service, 1 mile," I took the next turnout without hesitation. The road was gravel potholed and looked like it hadn't been used in years. But then through the mist, I saw it. A squat, boxy building lit by a flickering green sign, Deerwell Station. No pumps, just a single awning, a few plastic chairs, and an old vending machine buzzing like it was full of bees. No other cars, no attendant. I stepped out, stretched my legs. The air felt thick, not cold, exactly, just heavy. The kind of heavy that presses against your chest when you're being watched. I went around back to check for a tank refill, or at least a hose, but there was nothing. Just a cracked window, and a smell like wet fur and rust. Then I saw her. A woman maybe late 20s, standing perfectly still in the middle of the lot. Long black hair, white nightgown that looked soaked from the knees down. Barefoot. No footprints in the dust. I asked if she needed help. She didn't answer. She just tilted her head and took one step forward. That's when I noticed her eyes didn't reflect light. Not like animals. Not like people. They just drank it in, like pits. I backed away. She didn't move again, but I swear I saw her smile. Not wide, not creepy, just a twitch, like she recognized me. I turned back to my rig, climbed in, locked the door, put it in reverse. But the rear camera feed, usually black and white, was showing color. Bright red. A smear of it across the lens. Then a face. Not hers. Not human. It looked like a bat that had been stretched wrong. Hairless, pink-gray, the nose sunken into a ridge and a mouth that went ear to ear. No teeth, just ridges of black bone. And behind it, wings. Not spread. Tucked close like it had just landed. I slammed into drive and peeled out. Didn't stop driving for 300 miles. Not until daylight. But here's the thing. When I checked my dash cam later, the footage was intact. Up until the moment I pulled into Deerwell Station. Then it cut out just static until I hit the main road again. No station. No woman. Nothing. Except one frame. One single frozen image buried in the corrupted timestamp. It showed my cab from the outside, and something clinging to the roof. Something with wings. I thought maybe it was a nightmare, a sleep-deprived hallucination. Happens sometimes on long stretches. But that next night, parked at a rest stop near Spokane, I found 3 long scratches along the driver's side door. Not deep, just enough to chip paint. Like claws dragged deliberately, not in anger, but in greeting. Then came the smell. Inside the cab around 2:15 a.m., the air turned humid. Not damp from outside, but heavy sour like breath trapped in old cloth. The rearview mirror fogged from the inside. My ears popped like pressure shifted just around my head. I slept with the engine running that night, locked the doors, closed the curtains. But I woke up anyway this time, to the sound of something brushing across the roof. Not walking, not scratching, just dragging, like skin across metal. By morning, there was nothing. No marks, no footage, just a line of small, wet prints across the windshield. Not human, not animal, just 5 elongated smudges, symmetrical, fading in the sunlight. I started avoiding night shifts after that. Took day routes cross-county. Didn't help. The taps still came. Not every night, not in the same place, but always the same time. Between 200 and 2:20 a.m., no matter the time zone, the mirrors would fog and I'd smell it again. That copper rust breath that didn't belong to any living thing. I went back. I had to. 3 weeks later, I retraced my route to mile marker 219. Same highway, same dense fog, but the turnout wasn't there. No gravel road, no blue sign, just trees and weeds and endless grey. But something had been there. Still was. I felt it before I saw it. On the passenger seat, a smear of red. Not blood. Dust. Thin and chalky. Like dried clay. I touched it. It stung. That night, I parked in full light under security cams at a gas station with people. I told myself I was safe. I told myself it couldn't follow me through crowds, cameras, noise. Then a woman in a white dress walked into the station bathroom and didn't come out. I waited 20 minutes. Asked the clerk. He said nobody fitting that description had entered. Said the bathroom was empty. I asked him to check the tapes. He went pale. Said their system had gone black from 2:11 to 2:21 a.m. Exactly 10 minutes. He said he'd seen something on the screen just before the feed cut like wings. Large ones. I haven't driven since. I left the rig, quit the job. I moved south, took a night shift in a warehouse, somewhere without roads. But last night during break, I stepped outside for air. Fog rolled in fast, no breeze, just that heavy stillness again. And in the far end of the parking lot under a broken streetlight, I saw her. White dress, soaked from the knees down, smiling like she knew me. And above her, clinging to the light post like it had always been there, a shape with folded wings and eyes that drank in the dark. I blinked. They were gone. But on the glass door behind me, 3 wet smudges, as if something had leaned in, just to look. Story 4. Under the slaughterhouse floor. I used to work the overnight sanitation shift at a meat processing plant just outside Billings, Montana. The kind of place that doesn't advertise. No signs, no tours, just rows of concrete walls and the smell of bleach and blood that clings to your boots long after you leave. People don't last long on that shift. Not because it's hard work, though it is, but because of what you start to feel if you stay too long. You start to hear things in the drains, feel pressure in rooms where nothing should be moving. The building was decades old, multiple expansions bolted onto older sections like scar tissue. My route always ended near the oldest part of the plant, a tiled hallway leading to what used to be the original slaughtering floor. That section wasn't used anymore, supposedly condemned, but we were still told to mop the access hallway every week. The door at the end was always locked, but the steel frame was stained like something inside had tried to push out. One night, I finished the cleanup early and decided to take a closer look. My mop water had turned pink near the threshold, too pink. It wasn't runoff from the machines or leftover disinfectant. It was fresh. I leaned down and noticed a thin crack running beneath the door just wide enough for fluid to leak through. I put my ear against the cold metal, heard a thud, dull, rhythmic, like something pacing in wet boots. I should have walked away. I didn't. I wedged a screwdriver into the lock and pried until the bolt gave. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a room lit by one flickering bulb dangling from a cord. The floor wasn't tile anymore. It was uneven stone, slick and dark with moisture. The walls had carvings, not graffiti, carvings, deep gouges in the concrete spirals and marks that seemed too consistent to be random. I stepped inside. The air changed immediately, colder but also thicker, like breathing through cloth. I took one step, then another. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not from the corner, from above. I looked up and saw it hanging there, latched to the ceiling, with claws dug into the stone. A shape like a man, but stretched thin. Pale grey skin. Membranes like wings folded along its back veins, pulsing in the translucent webbing. Its arms were long, ending in curled black nails. Its head was elongated with ears that fanned backward like a bat. The mouth was closed, but something twitched behind the skin like teeth were shifting, eager to push forward. It didn't move, just watched me. I should have run, but my legs locked. Then it dropped, silent like a falling curtain. Landed 5 feet in front of me, knees, bending backwards, head cocked to one side, like it was deciding what part of me to eat first. I could see its chest heaving, like it was sniffing the blood in my veins. I backed up slowly, didn't speak, didn't breathe. But it followed. One step for every 2 of mine. Claws scraping against the stone with a sound like broken glass being stirred in a jar. Then out of nowhere, it lunged, not at me but past me, toward the door, like something behind me had startled it. I turned and saw nothing, but the creature was gone when I looked back, vanished like it had melted into the wall. I slammed the door shut, relocked it with shaking hands, and poured the rest of my mop bucket along the threshold. The pink water steamed where it touched the crack. I told no one. I kept working. Weeks passed, but every time I walked past that door, I felt it. Something watching. Then the disappearances started. First it was rats, then stray cats from the alley. Then a new guy from day shift didn't show up for 3 days. They found his ID badge by the old slaughter floor. Nothing else. I quit that night. But sometimes when I sleep too close to the floor, I hear it again. The claws, the breath. And once, just once, I saw something on the ceiling above my bed, just long enough for the shadows to fold in on themselves and vanish when I turned on the light. I moved states after I quit. Changed my phone number. I told myself it was burnout that I'd seen a feral bat or something crawling through the vent system. I told myself a lot of things just to sleep. But they didn't last. A year later, I took a job as a night janitor at a high school in Idaho. It was far from slaughterhouses and even farther from Montana. But some things don't care about distance. Some things don't need doors to follow you. It started with the drains again. Clogged, but not with hair or trash. Clotted bits of something. Tissue that looked half-formed, like someone tried to build a person from meat and gave up. Then came the ceiling tiles. I found one cracked open in the gym, a sticky trail leading up inside. I didn't look. I just duct-taped it shut and kept walking. But the pressure returned. That feeling like the air was watching me. heavy and wet. One night, I found claw marks on the inside of my locker. I hadn't told anyone where I was going, hadn't spoken the name of that place in Montana. And yet the same spiral was scratched into the metal, the same marks I saw on the walls of the slaughter room. I started sleeping with the lights on again, and that's when it began whispering. Not words, not language, just breath. Long, slow inches from my ear. I'd wake up with dried blood beneath my nose. I don't even remember the bleeding. And on one particularly bad night, I dreamed I was inside the plant again. The lights flickering, the walls moist. I looked up and saw it again, crawling across the ceiling wings, folded eyes sunken, but glowing like coals inside a dying fire. I tried to burn my uniform. It didn't help. The smell still lingers. Metal and rot. Now, even in daylight, I see glimpses. Reflections in windows that don't match my movements. Shadows along the edge of rooms I know are empty. One night, I turned off the faucet, and the water kept flowing pink. I live alone. So why do I keep hearing footsteps in the attic? I don't work anymore. I can't. I seal every vent check, every ceiling corner. But it waits. Not to kill. Not yet. I think it feeds on something smaller first: fear, memory, regret. It's patient. And I've come to believe it was never tied to that building. The thing that lives on the ceiling under the slaughterhouse floor. It lives in me now. Not inside my skin, but inside my story. Inside the telling. And if you've made it this far, if you've heard all this, I'm sorry. Because now it knows you too. Story 5, The Bridge That Hums. There's a bridge in Oregon I used to drive over every Friday night on my way to a weekend cabin. It's one of those forgotten logging roads that doesn't show up on GPS, suspended over a shallow ravine, rusted iron, and rotting planks barely held together. Locals just call it the Hummer's Pass. They say if your car stalls on the bridge, you can hear it hum. Not the engine, but the bridge itself. And if you hear the hum too long, you don't come back. I used to think it was just a mechanic's ghost story. I didn't believe it until it happened to me. It was mid-autumn when I first noticed something wrong. The air felt heavier that night, like the fog wasn't just water, but something clinging. I was halfway across the bridge when my radio cut to static. Then my headlights dimmed. And then I swear to God, everything just stopped. Like the air froze. The car shut off mid-roll and coasted to a dead halt in the middle of the bridge. Total silence. No crickets, no wind. Then came the hum. Faint at first. Low and deep, like the vibration of something immense breathing below. Not mechanical, organic. Felt more than heard. The bridge vibrated beneath my boots. Not violently. Rhythmic. Like a pulse. I walked toward the edge to check underneath. But I didn't need to look far. Because hanging upside down from the steel girders maybe 20 feet below was something that looked almost human. Too long in the arms, wing membranes stretched between elbow and ribs, its skin the color of old ash. It didn't move, but I could see its chest rising. It was breathing, and the hum, it was coming from its throat. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched, and then its eyes opened. White. Not blind white. Reflective. Like the eyes of a cave animal. It saw me, and it began to unfurl. Its arms split from the wing membrane, like peeling glue. Legs folded up spider-like beneath it, and then with one impossibly fluid motion, it let go of the girder and dropped toward the floorboards. It didn't land hard. It landed like mist, quiet, soft, too light for something that size. It crouched, unmoving. I stood frozen, between me and my car, just 10 feet away. It opened its mouth, rows of teeth, not vampire fangs, no elegance, no symmetry, just layers of needle-like canines bent inward like a fishhook. The hum was louder now. It shook the bolts, shook my teeth, and then it charged. But not at me. It moved past me, off the bridge into the dark, fast as wind. I bolted to my car, got inside, and it turned on like nothing happened. I didn't stop driving until morning. I told myself I'd imagined it. But the next time I crossed that bridge, something else happened. The following Friday, I brought a flashlight, a crowbar, and a camera. I didn't even tell my girlfriend I was going, just said I needed to fix something at the cabin. But truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way it moved, the way the hum felt like it shook something inside me. I parked before the bridge this time, got out, and walked. Same cold fog. Same sudden silence halfway across. The hum started again before I even reached the center. This time I looked up deliberately. It was there, but not alone. There were 3 of them now, hanging like bats from different beams, their chests pulsing in unison. The sound was different now, layered, harmonized, almost musical, but sickening. It made my stomach churn. They didn't move until I stepped into the center of the bridge, and then all 3 of them opened their eyes. They didn't attack. They descended, floating, not flying, but hanging like spiders from invisible threads. They touched the bridge softly surrounding me. I couldn't move. My flashlight flickered out, and the only thing I could do was press record on the camera. That's when the tallest one leaned in. Its face was a stretch of pale leather, thin lips curled back, eyes milky but sharp with intelligence. It opened its mouth, and I expected a roar, a hiss, something animal. But what came out was a sound I can only describe as a reversed scream, like something screaming backward. I felt it in my teeth, in my chest. Then it reached forward, not fast, slow, like it knew I was already broken. It placed a hand on my chest, and I swear I saw something. A memory that wasn't mine, a forest on fire, a stone altar. Something tied down, something screaming, blood everywhere. And then I was back, alone. The bridge was empty, no hum, no creatures. The car still running, camera still recording. I looked at the footage that night, all 37 minutes of it, but there was nothing, just static, just the hum, and a shadow behind me that never moved. I'm writing this because I don't cross bridges anymore. I don't drive at night. I don't sleep without the lights on, because the sound is still in my ears, and I know the next time I hear it, there won't be a road back. I tried to move on. I really did. I deleted the footage, sold the cabin, stopped driving out that way. But trauma doesn't care about directions. 2 weeks later, I heard the hum again, only this time not on a bridge. It was in my apartment, faint, coming from the floor vent. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But when I pressed my ear to the grate, I could hear it. Louder, resonating up through the pipes. I moved out the next day. But it followed me. One night after drinking too much, trying to forget, I left my window open. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to that same vibration in my chest. I couldn't hear it with my ears, only feel it. I walked toward the living room and saw my front door open. Not broken, just ajar. The hallway beyond was dark. I didn't see it at first. I only saw the long shadow stretching across my floor. I turned my head slowly, and standing in the hallway, barely outlined by the city lights behind it, was the thing from the bridge. But it was different now. Taller, thinner. The wings were gone, or folded. Its arms hung low fingertips, nearly touching the floor. It tilted its head, and I swear its mouth moved. Not the way we speak. More like mimicking. Like it was trying to understand the shape of words. It didn't come in. It just watched me. Then it stepped backward and vanished into the dark. I locked the door, moved again. But sometimes late at night, I feel that pull, that vibration in the bones. And I wonder how long can you survive something that never stops looking for you. The bridge was only the beginning. Whatever hums, remembers. Story 6, the Mirror Hall at summer camp. They told us not to go near the Mirror Hall. Said it was boarded up after a kid cut his arm real bad back in '89. That the floors were warped, unstable, dangerous. But they didn't board the windows. And if you looked through just right at dusk, you could still see the shapes inside rows of mirrors. Some intact, some shattered, some stained with what looked like rust. But never ran. I was 15 that summer, and Camp Redbrook was supposed to be a break. I'd had a rough year, school fights, hospital visits, something about blackouts my parents pretended weren't happening. They said the fresh air would help, but the nights were too quiet, and something about that building pulled at me. Not curiosity, something deeper. Like a thread tied around my ribs, tugging gently, always toward the dark. The hall sat on the far side of the lake, tucked behind trees no one walked through. Its wood was grayer than the others, like it had been burned but never fully caught. The door didn't creak when I opened it, it sighed. Inside, the air felt wet, stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. But the dust on the floor showed footprints, bare ones, leading deeper. The mirrors didn't match. Some reflected me, others reflected nothing. A few showed me smiling when I wasn't. The one in the back showed a different version of me entirely. Thinner, paler, eyes too wide, standing still while I moved. And above him, wings, folded, black, dripping, like a bat that had learned to mimic something human. I turned to run, but the mirrors twisted. Every reflection now showed that thing behind me. Closer, closer, closer. I didn't know which way was real anymore. The walls bent, my head pounded. I reached out and touched glass. But on the other side, my reflection didn't. It stared, then smiled, and its eyes turned red. I don't remember how I got out. I don't even remember the glass breaking. Just the sound, high, thin, like teeth grinding underwater, and the cold. So cold my skin felt brittle. I woke up at the lake's edge, palms sliced, knees bruised. One of the counselors said I'd been sleepwalking, that I must have fallen. But I'd never sleepwalked before, and no one asked why the soles of my feet were black with ash. I didn't go near the hall again. Not for the rest of the camp, but the dreams started that night. Always the same, I'm back inside. The mirrors are gone, just walls now, pulsing alive. The floor ripples like water, but when I look down, it's covered in eyes. Some closed, some opening, and somewhere deep in the dark, I hear wings. Weeks passed. I tried to shake it. I threw away the clothes I wore that night, burned the shoes, even asked my mum to cut my hair. But nothing stopped it. I'd glance at windows and see movement behind me, even when no one else was home. I started covering mirrors, taping towels over them. My reflection didn't always behave. Sometimes it blinked too slow, or smiled too long, or turned its head after I'd walked away. Then on my birthday, I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a photo. Me, standing in front of the mirror hall, from behind. The note simply read, "Come finish what was started." I told myself it was a prank, one of the older campers messing with me. But the postmark was from a state I didn't recognize, and the handwriting slanted, uneven, looked carved more than written. I went back. Camp was closed for the season. Empty cabins, dead leaves. Everything smelled of pine and wet rot. The sky hung low, thick with storm. I didn't bring a flashlight. Didn't need one. The windows of the mirror hall glowed faintly, like there was still something inside. Breathing. This time the mirrors were different, warped, melted at the edges. The air shimmered like heat, but the room was freezing. My breath came out in fog, but it didn't rise. It sank, coiled along the floor. In the far end, where that reflection had stood, something waited. Not me, not anymore. It unfolded slowly, arms too long, legs bent, wrong wings peeling out from its back like skin unzipping. Its eyes were red, not like blood, but like furnace coals, hot, endless. And it smiled with a mouth full of needle teeth. It didn't speak, but I felt it, a pressure in my skull. Words like claws, scraping bone, you let me in. It lunged, I ran, but every step echoed wrong. The floor stretched, the mirrors flashed. Every reflection now showed me being torn open in some new way, clawed, bitten, consumed. One showed me with wings, one showed me feeding, and one, just one, showed me watching, smiling, enjoying it. I don't remember the door, don't remember breaking through, only the sensation of falling, cold dirt, roots grabbing, then sky, empty. But I knew I hadn't escaped, because when I got home, every mirror in the house was cracked, just slightly, like something had pushed from the inside. And now, sometimes at night, I see him again, in the mirror, behind me, closer every time. Not a reflection, not a dream, a promise. He's learning to look more like me, and I think the next time I see him, it won't be from behind glass. Story 7. My friend is a vampire. I met Eli the same week my senior year started. He was the new kid, the transfer student from somewhere vague in New England. Nobody really noticed him. He didn't talk much, didn't eat in the cafeteria, and never seemed to be around when people were just hanging out. But I noticed there was something about him that didn't sit right. Not in a bad way, more like a silence that had weight to it. He was pale, always wore long sleeves, even when it was hot, and his eyes caught light weirdly. Not glowing, just reflecting it wrong like the red eye in old flash photos. Somehow, though, we ended up in the same lab group for physics, and after a few weeks of being the only two people who actually cared about the assignments, we became friends, if that's the right word for it. Eli was smart. Not just top of the class smart, but ancient smart. He read old books, quoted philosophers I'd never heard of, and sometimes said things that made you wonder if he'd lived through more than just high school drama. He never joined sports, skipped out on field trips, and avoided sunlight like he had a vendetta against it. But he never came off as weird, not really. Just different. He was calm, always calm, in a way that felt earned. One night, after a late study session, I cut my finger on a broken binder ring. It was nothing, just a small nick. But when I looked up, I saw Eli staring at the blood, like he was somewhere else entirely. He caught himself, quickly turned away, and told me to wrap it before it got infected. I didn't think much of it then, but it stayed in the back of my head. A week later, he confessed, not in a dramatic way, not like a movie, just quiet, like it was a fact. He told me he was a vampire, that he hadn't fed on a human in decades, that the thirst used to control him, but now he controlled it. He said it like someone telling you they used to be addicted to something, and they're still in recovery but doing fine. I didn't laugh. I didn't run. I believed him. After that, we didn't talk about it again. There was a kind of unspoken deal between us. I wouldn't ask questions. He wouldn't lie. We were just two people orbiting the same strange secret. Sometimes I caught him flinching near blood, or heard him breathing harder after gym class when someone scraped their knee. But he never slipped. He never fed. And over time, I stopped thinking of him as something dangerous. He was just Eli. Smart, quiet, ancient Eli. Then came the Wilderness Trip Senior tradition, 3 days in the woods without phones or signal. I wasn't excited, but I went. Eli didn't. He said the woods were dangerous in late fall. I thought he meant bears. On the second day, I wandered off the trail. Just needed some space. The forest was quiet, too quiet. The air felt heavy, like snow was coming. I don't remember the fall. I remember slipping the ground, giving way a moment of weightlessness, then the crunch of something inside my leg. Pain. Sharp, immediate, and total. I lay at the bottom of a narrow ravine or cold dirt, pressing against my back, unable to move. My leg was twisted. Broken, definitely. Blood pooled under my thigh, hot against the freezing ground. For a long time there was nothing. Just pain and breathing. Then I heard footsteps. Not boots, not hiking shoes. Bare feet. Light, fast, deliberate. And before I could even call out, he was there. Eli. He crouched beside me, his face blank. His eyes wild with something I couldn't read. He didn't ask how I got there. He didn't scold me. He just looked at my leg, then looked away, as if he were trying to keep something locked down. His hands shook when he touched the wound. Not from fear, from hunger. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. I could feel it in the way his whole body trembled. He was holding himself back, fighting something deep old and violent. His jaw clenched. His breath was shallow, but still he stayed. Still he helped. And then we both heard it. Not footsteps this time. Not boots or bare feet. Wings, heavy ones, beating the air slow and hard, like something large was descending through the trees. The sound echoed through the ravine, low and guttural, as if the air itself were trying to warn us. Eli stood, turned toward the sound. His face changed, not fear, not surprise, recognition. Something was coming, something he knew. I couldn't see it at first, whatever had made that sound, but I could feel it, in the air in my bones, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Eli didn't move. He stood perfectly still like a statue, carved from fear and memory. And then I saw it, a shape taller than a man crawling down the rocks with wings half spread and limbs that moved like they had too many joints. Its skin was dark, stretched, thin, pulsing in places like something alive just under the surface. It didn't walk. It crept, quietly, fluidly, as if it was made of shadow and sinew and blood. It saw me. I know it did. Its eyes were like burning glass, bright, hungry, ancient. And it smiled. Not like a person smiles. Like an animal bares its teeth before it bites. That was the moment I realized what Eli was facing. Not just a creature like him. Not a brother. A reminder of what he used to be. Of what he could become again. The thing lunged, and Eli met it mid-air. The impact shook the earth. They rolled across the ground, wings, thrashing claws ripping into flesh. I heard sounds I never want to hear again. Bones snapping growls that sounded almost human, and a scream that made the trees tremble. It was like watching two instincts tear each other apart. The predator and the one who refused to be one. Blood sprayed across the rocks, dark and thick, more than I thought could come from anything that still stood. Eli fought like he was trying to outrun a version of himself. He wasn't stronger. He was just more desperate, And that desperation won. When it was over, the thing lay motionless, neck twisted half, its chest torn open. Eli knelt beside it, barely breathing, his shirt soaked through with blood, his, I think. He didn't speak. He just looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something broken. Not regret, not shame, something deeper, like a dam that had cracked. He limped over, tore his own sleeve, and wrapped my leg in a crude, shaky bandage. The smell of blood must have been overwhelming. His hands were trembling again, but he never looked at the wound, never let himself get too close. He avoided my eyes, too, as if even that much connection would break him. When he finished, he didn't say goodbye. He didn't say anything. He just placed something small into my hand. A ring. His ring. The one he always wore, silver, old, engraved with strange letters I'd never been able to read. Then he stood, looked up at the trees, and vanished into them without a sound. I passed out shortly after. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but a search team found me the next morning. They said I must have fallen, hallucinated from shock. That a bear had attacked a deer nearby explained the blood, maybe the noise. I let them believe it. They wouldn't have understood. My leg took months to heal. I still walk with a limp when it's cold. But that's not what changed me. What changed me was knowing that Eli didn't run, that he chose not to feed, that in his worst moment, standing on the edge of losing everything he'd fought to become, he chose me instead. Chose restraint, chose memory, chose friendship. No one at school ever asked what happened to him. Maybe no one really knew him enough to care. Maybe that was how he liked it. But I kept the ring. I still wear it sometimes, on days when I feel lost or small or angry. On days I need to remember that monsters don't always give in, that some fight like hell just to stay human. I haven't seen him since, but sometimes when the night is too quiet and the moon is just a little too red, I hear something in the wind, a breath, a whisper, a warning. Eli didn't feed, not on me, but that hunger, it never really dies. This one got to me, not because it was the scariest, not because of the monster, but because of the restraint. The silence between two people, one of them barely still human, and how that silence meant everything. We always think of vampires as villains, predators, things that take. But this story, it's about the one that didn't. The one that held back when every part of him screamed not to. And that says something. About control, about choice, about how maybe the scariest thing isn't being hunted. It's realizing someone chose not to. Anyway, thank you for sticking around this long. I don't tell these stories because they're fun. I tell them because they stick. And maybe they're not just stories. If this one stayed with you, like it stayed with me, consider leaving a comment, or sharing it with someone who believes monsters don't get second chances. And if you want to hear more, like this, stories that unsettle without always needing a jump scare, hit subscribe. It helps the channel, helps me keep going. And if one night you hear wings in the dark, don't run. But don't look back either. See you in the next one.